Welcome to Education Station. I am Joshua Piguero. During this half-hour stream, we're going to focus on all the things that students in Clark County Public Schools should expect. Now, a lot of these, some parents may know already, right? Because, CCSD is not reinventing the wheel, so to speak. But there are some new things they're introducing, including new start times. Make sure that you're checking up on what time your kid's bell schedule rings this year, especially if you're in high school. It gets pushed back by at least an hour and a half. Middle school students are going to go into school earlier, and elementary school students are being pushed back. So some of these new things are the topic of conversation I had with Superintendent Joan Ebert. This is going to be her second year leading the fifth largest school system in the country. So we start right off the back with a plan. CCSD is planning to release in the fall that's going to discuss consolidating and possibly closing several school buildings. So we're going to start with that interview.
So the Building Brighter Future report, that's supposed to outline the projects for the next 5 to 10 years, is my understanding. How are you, and I'm sure you heard it, but how do you alleviate some of the concerns that people in the East Valley and the historic West Side have that some of their school buildings might get consolidated or closed?
Yeah, it's a big deal to have consolidation of a school or movement of children. We've been doing it for decades in the Clark County School District, where you might be zoned for one school and the next year you have to move. And so we fully acknowledge that change is difficult at times. We've put the process in place to evaluate. The team had over 50 community sessions to listen and find, but I think at the end of the day, what everybody needs to look at is it a modern, safe, technologically advanced building for our children to learn? And if we all agree that that's the goal, then moving children from a building that was built in the 60s into a brand new building, I think that's really what we want to think about. And we need to honor and respect the legacy that has transpired. We're doing Matt Kelly as a building replacement. It is going in smaller than it is now. It will hold about 440 children, but it needed to be upgraded. So that's the process that we're going through, and it will take a moment.
Now, this is about, I know some of this discussion on Building Brightest Future is about lower enrollment, that it's not just a CCSD phenomenon, it's something that data shows is happening across the country. But just explain to the audience, what does lower enrollment, the impacts it has on the school district?
Yeah, so we have really exciting over 23,000 children graduating this year. We have 17,000 kindergartners coming in. And so that trajectory will remain about the same into the future with, we're tracking all of that information. At the same time, we have, so for staffing, it's actually, working out fairly well, because in the 90s, and now people in 2026, they're ready. They are hired in 96, they're retiring in 2026. That we have large groups of people retiring. So we're watching all of those numbers very carefully. We want to make sure that we continue to have lower class sizes at an elementary level, 25, 26, 27 children in a classroom. We want those class sizes to remain the same as we look forward to the future. So it's an opportunity to look at the school district, not just of, okay, how are we going to seat all the children coming in? I still remember the year we opened 17 schools in one school year. And so moving away from that to how do we stabilize and take the learning that's going on and in our classrooms and optimize it with the amazing staff that we have.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, we had 2 administrators this year that were, and I know their hiring predated you, but that were sentenced for child sex crimes, right? 2 weeks ago, we did a story about the Boulder City coach being indicted, former football coach for Boulder City High School. Previously, I know we've talked about you. We talked with you about this, and also with former Chief Black Eye, and it's about you emphasize background checks. But is there anything more that y'all can do to at least, I don't know if prevent it, but maybe lower the number of staffers?
Should be zero. It's not acceptable at all. And anyone that even thinks about it needs to know that we will we will not, the school district does not do that, but the law, we will absolutely follow the law. We need to make sure that our children are safe all of the time. As you mentioned, we do the fingerprinting, background checks. Our principals are attuned to what's happening within their school building. And so we need to continue that and driving those numbers to zero.
Is there anything more you can do, like doing psych evaluations? That's something that y'all can do before hiring someone?
That is not something that we've explored. Yeah, I don't know any other school. Are you aware of a school district? I'm not aware of any other school district that has done that.
But you know why I asked that, right? Because it's just the numbers. I mean, God forbid, next school year starts and we get another report. And I know one of the things that officers have told me, to be frank with you, is they're like, Joshua, just look at the total number of staffers that we have versus the total number that get arrested, and it's still a pretty low percentage, but it's still a number that get arrested.
Yeah, it needs to be zero. I mean, that's the fact. And yes, you can use math. I love mathematics and the probability of something happening, but making sure that everyone is well aware of their surroundings, the people around them, and that children, if they feel uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form, that they speak with an adult immediately. And so that is clear communication at home, at school, with a responsible adult. Actually, that leans into part of our strategic plan, that every single child has an adult on campus that they feel comfortable going to. It may be their classroom teacher, it may be the counselor, it may be the principal, it may be a janitor on campus, but that every child is known by name, is seen, and they feel comfortable on campus with someone that they can go to.
I want to ask you, what do people get wrong when they try to compare CCSD with other large school districts like Fort Lauderdale, Miami, or LA?
What do they get wrong? I think here, what's interesting about Southern Nevada is that because we cover 8,000 square miles, and those other school districts that you mentioned, Miami, New York City, right? They do have a larger population, but it's vertical as opposed to horizontal. And the diversity with which the Clark County School District is. At the same time, I don't think they get right the amazing things that happen, that we have children that go to Ivy League schools, that we have children that go directly into the workforce. We hired a child CCSD hired a child to become an HVAC technician that just graduated. They had that certification and they went directly into the workforce from being a CCSD student to being a CCSD employee. So we are innovative, we are successful. Do we have more to do? 100%, but celebrating the work that is accomplished. I think a lot of people, and I've seen this through the decades, because so many people are new to Southern Nevada, they don't know all of the great things that happen in our schools. And so changing that information of yes, are there things to do? 100% that need to be completed within the Clark County School District. And there are phenomenal things that are accomplished. We were number 2 across the United States for dual credit course offerings for our children. We have world-class magnet schools, and making sure that all of our high schools are magnet schools. That's going to be our goal in the strategic plan over the next 5 years. So I think they really get wrong about how much is right with the Clark County School District.
All right, you heard her there, Superintendent Joan Ebert, entering her second year as superintendent for the nation's 5th largest school district. Now, when we come back, I have a conversation with the CCSD police about some of the new things they'll be doing this school year. Welcome back to Education Station. I am Joshua Peguero. This episode's focus is on back to school. Now, we just heard from the superintendent of the Clark County School District, Joan Ebert, who talked about several things, including a report coming out in the fall that may lead to schools in the East Valley and historic West Side closing. Now, we're going to move on to CCSD PD. Here we have a conversation with Lieutenant Brian Zink about what the police department is doing to keep students and staff safe.
So this year we're going to continue doing what we've done in the past, which is has been really successful. If you see our numbers, they've definitely been trending down. We're going to continue to do our random Smiths on campus with our K-9 team, and we're always going to encourage our parents to have that conversation with their students about what's appropriate to bring to school, what they shouldn't bring to school. Be involved, check their backpack, especially during their first few weeks of school, because we'd hate for something that was in the backpack over the summer to make it onto one of our campuses and cause some issues. And then definitely, if you see something, say something. Continue to report things to a trusted adult on campus or your parents, and then always use Safe Voice to report any suspicious activity, because all those tips are followed up on.
Are y'all going to do the same thing y'all normally do, where it's like the first 2 weeks you have an increased amount of officers?
Yeah, definitely. Every year we empty it out. We call it emptying out our main stations. We get all the officers that work office jobs, investigations, training, things like that, to come out and assist our patrol officers out in the field to make sure that everything's safe. And then, of course, we're always going to rely on our fellow law enforcement agencies in the Valley, Metro, Northtown, Henderson, Mesquite, Boulder City, every jurisdiction to be out in those school zones patrolling, making sure that these kids get a chance to get inside the building.
Talk to me a little bit about, and y'all have a new chief now, and he said that y'all are now going to have middle school officers stationed at the middle schools. Talk to me a little bit about the difference maker it has having officers stationed there.
Well, for probably the last 6 years, we have had a small group of officers assigned to our middle schools. They came through a COPS grant, so once they graduate, they spend 3 years at those campuses. And statistically, we all know that the best place to make an intervention in a child's life is when they're younger. Elementary school's a little too young. High school may or may not be too late, but definitely at that middle school, it can make a huge difference. So we always encourage our patrol officers who are responsible for the middle schools to spend as much time on those properties as possible, get to know the kids, let them see us in the uniform so that they recognize us as being friends, and it just helps make the community a lot safer.
Now, I hate to ask this because nobody wants to be involved in a situation like this, but we had last school year a number of incidents of like educators being arrested, accused, not all, there's because some of them going through the court system of having a relationship with students. What sort of advice do you have for kids and parents in terms of navigating that?
Well, it's definitely important for parents to explain to their kids what's a good relationship and what's not a good relationship. Definitely, there's no child in high school who should think that it's okay or safe to be in a relationship with an adult, someone outside of their age group or their peer group. And definitely, if it's some kind of school district employee that's trying to get into a relationship with you, definitely tell your parents, because that person is violating the law. They're violating the trust of you. They're violating the trust of your parents and the entire community as a whole, and it's not good. It's illegal. And when we find out about these type of things, not only us, Metro, Northtown, Henderson, we all investigate these crimes until we get a good resolve, and a lot of times that ends up in somebody being arrested, losing their credentials, and throwing away a life that could have had promise, and then the psychological effect that it has on that child could take years and years to fix, and we just don't want to see that happen. So if you're a student and some teacher starts making you feel a little bit uncomfortable, please, please, please say something to mom and dad, say something to a teacher, let somebody know so that we can stop it. Hopefully it's just an innocent, they're taking interest in a kid for whatever reason, sports, athletics, academics. But maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but we definitely need to look at it, figure it out what it is, and then do what we need to do.
And lastly, just the whole social media, how sometimes social media leads to on-campus fighting.
Yeah, definitely, mom and dad, talk to your kids about social media, about not spreading these threats, not saying, hey, I want to warn you about something that might happen. Because once you hit send on that text, that email, it now becomes yours. And unless we can prove that it wasn't yours, a lot of times you're going to be held responsible for that, and that can lead to progressive discipline, which gets you kicked out of school. You may not get to graduate with your peers. You could end up in jail, so it's not a good thing. So definitely think before you send. And again, if you get something that looks weird, pump it up, push it up through Safe Voice. That way it gets to us. You're not going to get in trouble if you share it with Safe Voice. Share it with all your friends and it causes an issue at the school, you could get in serious trouble.
Now, one of the things Lieutenant Brian Zink, who you heard from there, discussed early on is how the number of guns confiscated on campus have gone down. And as he said in that interview, it's partly due to gun-sniffing dogs. Now, when we come back, we're going to focus on your students' health and what they're eating in the cafeteria. Thank you so much. Welcome to Education Station. I'm Joshua Piguero, and what I meant to say is we're going to talk about back to school. That's the topic we've been focused on all this episode. We started with CCSD Superintendent Joan Ebert. Then we went to Lieutenant Brian Zink with CCSD PD. His whole focus was on safety and some of the new things that we're implementing this year, and also continuing that have been successful, including gun sniffing dogs. Now we're going to talk about school lunches. How is it that the fifth largest school system keeps kids healthy? And again, the meals at CCSD are all free. That's something they implemented a few years ago right after we came out of the pandemic. So all the meals are free. So here's the interview now with how students are being kept fit and healthy.
Oh yeah, so we've got the yogurt parfait this year. So it's been something we've been working on for a few years. In September, it'll come out to our high schools and middle schools. So it's got Greek yogurt, it's got blueberries, pineapple is what we're going to start out with, blueberries and pineapple, and granola.
Describe to me the process of when you're introducing something new, because I think you have to abide by a certain health standard, right?
Right. So we have to make sure it fits into the menu. It's kind of like a puzzle. The USDA has us following a meal pattern, weighted nutritional analysis. So we have to make sure that we reach the right number of calories, the right number of saturated fat, make sure it doesn't have too much added sugar in it, So it's all a puzzle trying to make something fit into the menu. But this yogurt parfait will be really great for the school.
So, I didn't know that. So every year y'all go in whenever you create a menu and you have to follow that guideline.
We do. We've got to follow that guideline. So usually when we add an item, we take off an item or we take it off so it doesn't occur quite as much. Because if for the week, if we're trying to reach a certain calorie limit, we can't put on something that has too many calories. It'll throw off the whole menu.
So describe to me the plan when you're starting meals. How's the plan to get formulated? Is it the start of the week or the start of the month when you're deciding to put meals?
So when we're deciding to do meals, we do it a whole year in advance because we have to. It's a process where we have to go through our purchasing department. We have to get spec sheets. We have to make sure that the spec sheets meet the nutritional requirements by the USDA, and then we also have to make sure that, since we're following sodium limits and calorie limits, that we can't put something on the menu that has too much salt in it, or it just won't fit.
So it's a year out then. Okay.
It's a year out.
And then because sometimes. Every 4 years we get a new president, we get a new administration. Does that also impact y'all's whenever they come in, a new USDA commissioner or secretary comes in and they change everything and scrap it? Does that impact what your meals look like also?
It impacts it, but there's a long lag just because the USDA and the government understand that it takes a long time to change the menus for schools. So next year, for instance, we've got a rule where we're supposed to be under 10% added sugars for breakfast and for lunch and for supper. That came from the past administration, so the Biden administration.
So a 10% decrease in that issue?
A 10% decrease, yes. Yeah.
So so it told me 2 years ago, most likely, was that plan, or 3 years ago, who knows? Was that plan was formulated?
That was formulated. I couldn't tell you the exact date, but 2 years ago we knew that it was going to be in effect for sure. Okay. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your popular meals. We were getting video of it, but tell me some of the popular ones.
So some of the popular ones are like the spicy chicken sandwich over at the high school level. We've got walking tacos too. So that's like Doritos with turkey meat and cheese, lettuce, tomatoes. We've got teriyaki chicken, we've got orange chicken, we've got sweet and sour chicken, and then we also do serve pizza, which is a big popular item for the kids.
And again, all this follows USDA caloric count.
It does. It all follows USDA. So it's special, so it wouldn't be the kind that you would get at the restaurant, you know. So our orange chicken is breaded with whole grain, so it's at least 51% whole wheat flour or whole grain flour. Same thing with our pizza crust. The cheese for the pizza is reduced sodium cheese, reduced saturated fat cheese. So it's specifically for schools, but it mimics what they would have at a restaurant.
Wow. Okay. So on a macro level, how many kids do y'all, describe to me how many kids y'all feed on a daily basis and how many meals you put out, because I know oftentimes it's also breakfast.
So we do 226,000 meals. Nope. We do 229,000 meals every single day. Last year, we served about 40 million meals for the whole year. Yeah.
Is there one meal that's always reoccurring because people love it for the kids?
So I missed our most popular meal, and this is at secondaries. They love the cheesy breadsticks with the marinara sauce. Yeah.
Now, I know we have a few minutes left, but describe to me about this cinnamon roll.
The cinnamon roll is beautiful. So our cinnamon roll, we're known for our cinnamon roll. Again, it's 51% whole wheat flour. The other flour is enriched. It's lower in sodium. It's lower in saturated fat, lower in sugar than a cinnamon roll you would get at the mall, but it tastes really, really good.
As you heard him there, 229,000 meals served a day, and a total of 40 million meals were served last school year. Now, also another thing I wanted to mention as we end this education station back to school special is there were new school zone laws passed. So now the fine gets doubled if you make a U-turn or pretty much speeding. Any infraction you do on a school zone, the fines have been doubled, and this is part of a new bill that went into effect on July 1st of this year in a way to decrease the number of students who were hit by cars. And just to give you something to marinate with, there were 427 crashes last school year. That means from August to May, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 427 students were hit by cars as they were either going to school or coming or leaving school, just trying to get home. So please, folks, slow down, be mindful of the new changes coming to school zones, as well as the new changes in school start times, which means there's going to be more traffic as you're heading out for work. I'm Joshua Piguero. That wraps up our Back to School special. Thank you so much, and we'll see you here again in the next few weeks.